Hello guys, this is our one and only video for APUSH on Friday, May 1st. This will be the last video for the video notes prior to the test. Okay, wrapping up the end of the war here for World War II. As the war neared its end in Europe, the apparent victors, the Allies, met to discuss the fate of the post-war Europe. In February of 1945, the Allied leaders met at Yalta and in effect redrew the world map. By this time, the Soviet Army occupied parts of Eastern Europe, a result of the campaign to drive the German Army out of the USSR. Stalin wanted to create a buffer zone between Western Europe and the Soviet Union. He wanted to surround himself with nations that were friendly towards the government in Moscow. Because of the presence of the Red Army, Stalin was given a free hand in Eastern Europe, a decision the other Allies would later regret, with the promise to hold free and federal elections after the war. Despite this promise, Soviet tanks rolled into Romania 3 weeks after Yalta, thus beginning the establishment of Soviet satellites and the descent of the Iron Curtain. The Iron Curtain was a metaphor coined by Winston Churchill in 1946 to describe the symbolic division of Eastern and Western Europe, and thus the origins of the Cold War following World War II. The Allies agreed on a number of issues concerning the borders and post-war settlements. They also agreed that once the war in Europe ended, the USSR would declare war on Japan. Toward the end of the war, the Allies agreed to help create the United Nations to mediate future international disputes. The Allies met again at Potsdam in that summer of 1945 to decide how to implement the agreements of Yalta. This time, Harry Truman represented the United States, as Roosevelt had died in April of 1945. Things did not go well at Potsdam. With the war's end closer and the Nazis no longer a threat, the differences between the United States and the Soviets were growing more pronounced. Some argue that American and Soviet animosity prompted Truman's decision to use the atomic bomb against the Japanese. By this argument, America feared Soviet entry into the Asian War, where the Soviets might then attempt to expand their influence, as they were doing in Eastern Europe. Along the same line of reasoning, one could assert the United States wanted to put on a massive display of power to intimidate the Soviets. However, the manner in which the war in the Pacific had been fought to that point also supported Truman's decision. The Japanese had fought tenaciously and remained powerful despite the long war. Casualty estimates of American invasion of Japan ran upwards of 500,000 people. Some military leaders estimated that such an invasion would not subdue Japan for years. In August, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs, first on Hiroshima, then on Nagasaki. The Japanese surrendered soon after, and that ended World War II. And that's going to bring us to the key concepts for Unit 7 in the course guidebook for U.S. history. So we're looking at topic 7.13, World War II military. Americans view the war as a fight for the survival of freedom and democracy against fascist militarist ideologies. The perspective was later reinforced by revelations about Japanese wartime atrocities, Nazi concentration camps, and the Holocaust. Military service provided opportunities for women and minorities to improve their social economic positions for the war's duration, and while also leading to debates over racial segregation. The United States and its allies achieved military victory through Allied cooperation, technological and scientific advances, the contributions of servicemen and women, and campaigns such as Pacific Island hopping and D-Day invasion. The use of atomic bombs hastened the end of the war and sparked debates about the morality of using atomic weapons. All right, 7.14, post-war diplomacy. The war-ravaged condition of Asia and Europe and the dominant U.S. role in the Allied victory and post-war peace settlements allowed the United States to emerge from the war as the most powerful nation on Earth. Kind of wrap up 7.15. Overall, from this era, from the first half of the 1900s, growth expanded opportunity while economic instability led to new efforts to reform U.S. society and economic system. The United States continued its transition from a rural agrarian economy to an urban industrial economy led by large companies. In the progressive era of the early 20th century, progressives responded to political corruption, economic instability, and social concerns by calling for greater government action and other political and social measures. During the 1930s, policymakers responded to the mass unemployment and social upheavals of the Great Depression by transforming the U.S. into a limited welfare state, redefining the goals and ideas of the modern American liberalism. Innovations in communications technology contributed to the growth of mass culture, while significant changes occurred in internal and international migration patterns. Popular culture grew in influence in the U.S. society, even as debates increased over the effects of culture on public values, morals, and American national identity. Economic pressures, global events, and political developments caused sharp variations in the numbers, sources, and experiences of both international and internal migrants. Participation in a series of global conflicts propelled the United States into a position of international power, while renewing domestic debates over the nation's proper role in the world. In the late 19th century and the early 20th century, new U.S. territorial ambitions and acquisitions in the Western Hemisphere and the Pacific accompanied heightened public debates over America's role in the world. World War I and its aftermath intensified ongoing debates about the nation's role in the world and how best to achieve national security and pursue American interests. U.S. participation in World War II transformed American society, while the victory of the United States and its allies over the Axis powers vaulted the United States into a position of global political and military leadership. And that ends Unit 7. That ends all the testable content that the test will cover this year. Remember that Unit 8 and Unit 9, 1945 and onward, will not be covered on this exam. So that's it. Only review of how to write a DBQ essay after this, and then test is in about a week and a half. Good luck, guys.